Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to show you an example of using colour and the lack of colour to focus the player's attention on the part of the game, or the part of the current screen that you want them looking at. So before we start, I have to apologise. We're going to be dealing with colour pictures and then with pictures that are exactly the same except that they're black and white. And so if you are colourblind in particular, you might have trouble, you won't be able to see the difference, and so therefore it won't be immediately obvious what I'm talking about. I'm going to do my best to say what's happening, but if I'm not clear, please leave a comment and I'll do my best to address it. So if you've been following this series, you will have seen this screen before. There's nothing new on this screen. There's nothing new here. But, okay, this you won't have seen before. All of the pictures were colour, but now this picture, and this picture have become black and white, and this picture has become black and white except for the counter in the middle, which is still colour, and this picture and this picture are still colour. So why has that happened, and why those particular pictures? Well, if we look at this text here, it says choose one of the two cards to the right of your counter by clicking it. And so the important things in this stage of the game are the player counter, telling you where you are, and the two cards that you have to choose from. And so those are the things that are colour. The counter is colour, but the card sort of behind it isn't. And then these two cards are colour because you have to choose between these two cards. And then there's three black and white cards because they're not they're not among the choices, and so they're not relevant. And so let's say we choose that one. And now things change again. This card and the counter are colour. This card's colour, this card's colour, this card's colour. This one's black and white, and this one's black and white. Well, the reason for that is you've dealt with this card, and you're never going to interact with this card, at least not in this run through the cards. You are going to deal with this card because this is the card your counter is on, and then after that you'll deal with this one, and then after that you'll have a choice of one of these two. So the cards that you're no longer likely to interact with, or that you no longer have any way of interacting with, this one and this one, we've turned them black and white to sort of indicate that, well, they're not relevant this run through the cards. The only ones that are relevant are this one, this one, this one, and this one. And so it goes. So at each choice, now we see that this one, and this one are black and white, and this one, and this one are colour, and it's for the same reason. You're going to interact with this card, and then you're going to have a choice of one of these two cards, and so those three are relevant, and these three, which we've sort of gone past, are now irrelevant and are therefore black and white. And once you deal with this one, once we deal with this card, we'll find that the back of it turns black and white because we've now dealt with it, it's over, but these two will still be colour because we have a choice between those two, and the player counter will still be colour. And thus we see that the counter is colour, and this card is colour, and this card is colour. So at each point, the bits that are relevant are in colour, and the bits that are irrelevant are in black and white. And hopefully that makes it easier for the player to immediately focus on what's going on what they should be focusing on. So that's what I did. Let's have a look at how I did it, which has two parts. First of all, we need to make some new files because there isn't a command that says display this picture but display it in black and white, or at least if there is a command, I don't know it. And anyway, we do have cards that are mixed black and white and colour. So the way that I did that is by making new files. So you may, if you've been following this series, know that for each card we had 3 versions. So for example, this is card A, which is the abandoned spaceship card, and we have A.png, which is just the card. We have AF.png, which is the card but with the female player token on it, and we have AM, which is the male equivalent of AF. It's the same card but with the male token on there. And we have to add 3 new versions of the card. And they are going to be delineated by having a G at the end. So as well as A, we'll have AG, as well as AF, we'll have AFG, and as well as AM, we'll have AMG. And that will be true for every card except for card H. Card H, the Hostile Aliens card, that only appears at the end of the spread, if it appears at all. It is the equivalent of, in the original game, it was called the boss monster card. It's like the final fight of the area that you're in. And as a result, you can never be on this card and choosing between 2 new cards, because it isn't shuffled in with the other cards and put in that spread. It's only at the end. And once you finish interacting with it, you've finished the spread and you go to a new area, or what we're calling a new sector. So we don't need an equivalent. We don't need an equivalent of CFG or AFG, etc. We don't need that for H. We only need the G. But for the others, we need 3 new ones. So for H, we just need 1 new one. So I'll show you how I did it. I'll show you for one. Of course, I did it for all of the cards, but it's the same operation each time. So now this is Gimp. I always use Gimp. It's a free program. I'm told that it's very similar to Photoshop. So you should be able to translate this quite easily. For other programs, I don't know how similar they are, but what we're doing is quite simple, so it should be fairly easy to work out how to do it. So let's just do it for the A card. So we have A. If we wanted, we could zoom in with Command-Shift-J or Control-Shift-J, but there's not a lot of reason to do it. What we do, we go Image, Mode, and we'll see we've got RGB, and that's ticked. RGB stands for red, green, blue, basically just means colour. And one of the options is grayscale, and that's the one we want. We don't worry about this indexed one, which is a different way of having colour. So we go grayscale, and we just have exactly the same picture, but now it's black and white, shades of grey. So we go File, Export, and we call that AG. But we also need the ones with the 2 player counters on it. So we need to go Image, Mode, and we turn it back to RGB, which doesn't change the picture immediately. It just means we can add colour elements. The colour information was lost when we changed it to black and white, so it doesn't change it back to colour, which is good because that's what we want. Then we go File, Open as Layer. There it is, Open as Layers, sorry. And then we choose the token F, which is the token for the female character. And there we have the what we're going to call AFG. And so we would export that as AFG. Definitely don't overwrite it, because that means saving it with the old file name. We export as AFG. And then we do the same with the male token. We could either delete that layer or we could turn it off. Let's delete the layer. And then we open as layers the male token, and then we export that as AMG. And we do that for all of them, and we've got all of the graphics we want, except for the H. We only do the first part for H because we don't need all 6 files, we only need 4. So, having made those files, now we need some code that essentially tells the program when to add a G. and that code is going to be in the card page. And the thing that we need to remember is the variable $t. $t. $t tells the program exactly what's happening when we're displaying the cards, and it has a value of either 0, 1, or 2. 0 is that you're just going to get a button to continue. 1 is you have to click one of card 2 or card 3, and 2 is you have to click one of card 5 or card 6. So it tells you exactly what's going on. Is it a choice? And if it's a choice, which of the two choices that happen during the, as in the two choices of where to go, which of the two choices of where to go is it, or is it not a choice? It's just displaying the current situation. And so the state of T and which card our counter is currently on, which is C, is going to be relevant. And on this page, Z is which card we're currently printing. We're currently dealing with the code. So we need T, which is the type of display, C, which is your current position, the player's current position, and Z, which is what card are we currently working out how to display. So let's zoom in a bit on the card. Now I'll scroll past all this code because that's irrelevant to this. The card or the code that we want is just this. I think that's all of it. Yep. And also bear in mind that we're going to be adding the text G to a string, but we've also got the variable G because $G is where we store which avatar you've chosen. G, in this case, standing for gender. So $G has a value of either the character M or the character F. So bear in mind the distinction between adding $G, i.e. the value of that variable, and the actual string, the actual character G. What we're doing here is adding the character G, or deciding whether to add the character G or not. So as I say, it's in this if else if structure. So if T is equal to 0 and $Z is less than $C, sorry, I should remind you that Y is a string which has all of the information. We're going to print Y right at the end. It's the last thing we do. And that prints a whole bunch of code which displays the card as well as its hover text. So it's something like div title equals quarantined planet, and then there's quite a lot of extra text because the hover text is actually quite long. Then we have the command for an image, and it might be something like af.png, or if we turn out to want the grey version, afg.png, etc., etc., and then /div. So what we're currently doing is we're dealing with the bit of Y. Sorry, it'll actually be img art / and something, because everything's stored in the folder that's named art. So we're currently dealing with what's this bit going to be? In other words, which file in the art folder is the one we're looking for? And more specifically, do we need to add a G at the end of that file name? So let's go through it. If T equals 0 and Z is less than C, in other words, if this isn't a choice one and we're displaying a card that we've already gone past, then it needs to be grey. If T is 0 and C is 2 and Z is 3, it needs to be grey. And if T is 0 and C is 5 and Z is 6, it needs to be grey. So I'll show you why that's the case. The layout is like this. We have one. Okay, so let's say T is 0. Let's say C is 5, meaning you're currently on card 5, and Z is 6, meaning we're currently displaying card 6. Well, Z is not less than C, but we still can't ever get to card 6. If we're on card 5, we're never getting to card 6. So card 6 is effectively one of the cards that's sort of in our past. It's one of the cards that we've bypassed. So therefore we treat it as if it's sort of in the past, which means that if Z is 0, we grey it out. So that's why we've got that one, and then the equivalent is true for if C is 2 and Z is 3. If we're on card 2, then card 3 we can never interact with, and so it's effectively in our past as well. And that's why we have those two special commands. So that's if T is 0. Then if T is 1, we grey it out if Z does not equal 2 and not equal 3. Because if T is 1, that's the choice between cards 2 and 3. So the only ones we want to not grey out are 2 and 3. We want to display those two because they're the cards between which the player must choose. And then if T is 2, which is the choice between 5 and 6, well, we want to grey out everything except 5 or 6. So we have if T is 2 and Z does not equal 5 and Z does not equal 6, then we had G. So those are all of the possibilities in which will cause a G. Now, this is a little bit redundant because it says if T is 0 and Z is less than C. Actually, in every case where Z is less than C, we want to grey it out. But the reason I've done that is just because conceptually I wanted to deal with, well, what do we do if T is 0? And what do we do if T is 1? And what do we do if T is 2? So that is a little bit redundant. It could just say if Z is less than C, but that's just a way of sort of categorizing it so that we're dealing with, okay, this is dealing with all of the cases. If T is 0, we want to get rid of everything in the past, and also if we're on card 2, we treat 3 as being in the past, and if we're on card 5, we treat 6 as being in the past. So it's not strictly necessary, but it sort of makes it easier to think about what the code is doing, or at least I found it so. So we go through all that code. We may add a G, and then we add the .png, and we add the rest of the code that's necessary. And that's basically how it works. That decides whether we print the normal colour version of the card or whether we print a greyed out or partially greyed out version. So I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.